please. Judy, roll call, please.
John Dooley,
Here.
Jim Pruitt,
Here.
Horace Reese, Don Whipple,
Here.
Bill Erstis.
Here. The agenda, any additions or corrections to it?
Move to accept the agenda.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Agenda approved. Judy, would you read the minutes from the November 26th meeting, please?
City of Greensburg, Indiana, Board of Aviation Commissioners, Monday, November the 26th, 2018. Call to order. President Bill Erstis called the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Roll call. Board members present were Bill Erstis, John Dooley, Jim Pruitt, and Don Whipple. Paul Shaffer of BF&S, Airport Manager Jerry Scheidler, and Mayor Dan Manis were also present. Horace Reese was absent. Judy Kirk performed the duties of secretary. Agenda approval. The meeting agenda was reviewed. Jim Pruitt made a motion and Don Whipple seconded the motion to approve the agenda as presented. The motion passed unanimously by voice vote 4-0. Minutes. Judy Kirk read the October 22nd, 2018 minutes. Jim Pruitt made a motion and Don Whipple seconded the motion to approve the minutes as read. The motion passed unanimously by voice vote 4-0. Financial report. John Dooley read the financial report. There was no old business, new business. Paul Shaffer of BF&S. FAA site review. Paul noted that Dolores Small from the FAA will be in Greensburg for a site visit at the airport on Thursday, November the 29th, 2018. Paul will also attend the review. New runway project. Paul reported that the survey work has started and the boundary work is finished. BF&S will complete the legal descriptions and forward them to Don Tribbett by the end of the year. Topographical surveying still needs to be completed. Airport Manager's report. Jerry Scheidler reported there is one hangar available in D2. There are currently no renter prospects. Jerry also noted that the snowplow attachment has been installed on the tractor and is ready for use. Approval of bills. Bill Erstis presented the bills for payment. Jim Pruitt made a motion and Don Whipple seconded the motion to approve the payment of bills as presented. The motion passed unanimously by roll call vote 4-0. Comment, there were no comments from the board or public. Meeting adjournment and next meeting date. There being no further business before the board, John Dooley made a motion and Jim Pruitt seconded the motion to adjourn the meeting. The motion passed unanimously by voice vote 4-0 and President Bill Erstis adjourned the meeting at 7:14 p.m. The next meeting will be held on Monday, December the 17th, 2018 at City Hall at 7 p.m.
Any additions or corrections?
Move to accept the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Go ahead. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, John, the financial report, please.
Financial report for the Greensburg Municipal Airport. We have the three airport accounts. In the airport improvement account, the balance $46,856.17. In the aviation rotary fuel account, $35,415.61. And for airport operations account, $95,623.74. Total of all three accounents combined, $177,895.52. Okay, and we just made the Jackson County Bank semi-annual payment, and the balance of that account now is $269,001.90.
Okay. No old business. Mr. Shaffer.
Okay, good evening. As reported last month, we are working on the legal descriptions and do expect to have those prepared by the end of the year per our schedule. So we'll deliver those to Don Tribbett at that time to go on to the next step in the land acquisition process. This month we have a pay request, an FAA pay request number 3 on AIP number 12, and this is basically for work incurred on some of the preliminary engineering study, the surveying, to date. So what we've got is federal share, $33,075. State share, $1,837.50. And a local share of $1,837.50. So the total of all these together is $36,750. So this is AIP number 12, partial pay request number 3. And this is part of the ongoing 2017 grant that you're drawing on. This takes us to approximately 40% complete. So we've got quite a ways to go yet on this grant before we get into the grant we got this past year. So if it pleases the board, we'd like you to have a motion to approve submission of the pay request with President Ernst's signature.
That's in the bills.
Okay.
Yeah, we still need a motion.
Do we need a separate motion or?
Well, for State Board of Accounts purposes, we've been trying to make sure we have separate motions to approve the partial pay request to make it easier for them to track.
We can do that.
Just, it helps when you get your federal audit to have that all in line.
So, we need then a motion to authorize the board president to sign
Partial pay request number 3 for AIP number 12.
pay request number 3 for AIP number 12.
Make a motion.
I'm making the motion. It may be
Second.
kind of,
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote, Judy?
John Dooley,
Yes, Spade.
Jim Pruitt,
yes.
Don Whipple,
Yes.
Bill Ernst.
Yes. Okay, we will take care of that, and it is in with our bills already, so we'll just get it on down to you.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
The other item that I passed out to you before the meeting is a draft copy of the capital improvement plan update for this year. You'll notice in the yellow bars is the fiscal year of the project. So the major difference between this year's and last year's was the 2018 project was funded by the FAA, so that dropped off. That's what the 2018 grant was for. So in 2019, we are requesting the full grade and drain package of the runway. This year may slide. Of course, we have to be in a position to be able to construct it, which means we have to have the land in order to do that. We also need to have the FAA funds in place before we can proceed. But the concept here is this outlines the process once the money starts flowing. So if it doesn't go in 19, then it would begin in 2020. So because we don't really know right now, we're just going to go ahead and request it in 2019 for the full grade and drain amount. And then you'll see in 2020 is the paving and the airfield lighting and the signs, with some of the land reimbursement being in that phase. And then in 2021, you have some additional land reimbursement that's going to be reimbursed then over the next 3 years to finish that out. You'll also notice in 21, 22, 23, there are locally funded, or state and local projects. So the fire service for the water utility and the terminal building with a hangar attached to it. Those are state local requests, 50-50. The program right now does not have any money in it, but the state is still requesting that we put in requests for the projects in case they do happen to get the funds in place. So we've put those in there. They're not part of the federal program, they're part of the state program. As you can see, with those fees just divided half by the state and half by the local community. And then the last year in 2024, after we get the runway built, we'll need to strengthen the taxiway and the apron because of the larger weight loading of the larger business jets that will be using the runway. So that is the plan. There's no action required on this evening. We can take action on this in January. This is just for your review. If you have any comments, please send them to me, and we'll need to take action on this in January.
Do we have any deadline on this?
Yeah, it's due the 1st of February, so back to NDOT.
So basically, we have to do it next month.
We'll have to approve something, and if you like this plan here, there's and you don't foresee any major changes, you could approve it tonight, and I can prepare the whole packet. If you'll recall, the packet has all of the detailed cost estimates, along with the signature page, cover letter, and then there's a 11 by 17 picture that's color coded with the years in which the construction goes. I just brought this summary page tonight to refresh everybody's memory on the different phasing of the project.
Was there any reason not to go ahead?
It's been this, honestly, Jim, this has been this way for quite a while. The only thing we've done is freshened up the estimates a little bit to make sure that they reflect current pricing. So, I don't see it changing a lot at this point. Just, we still have some variables in the project, but this is as good as it gets right now. So it's up to the board.
So is it better than to wait until next month? January?
It certainly doesn't hurt you to wait till next month. You don't get bonus points for submitting early, although they do appreciate it when they don't have to enter them all in the last week of the program. But, that's really all I have to report tonight. If there's any other questions.
Are there advantages to it early?
It just helps spread their workload out, because they take this information and put it in their master spreadsheet and try to work it out.
Does it help us any be in early? I know you said there's no.
I think
round of applause for it, but
I think the only thing it helps right now, Jim, is goodwill. It just helps them spread their workload out. There's not really any bonus points. We're going to have to submit the grant applications for the federal money down the road. This is a requirement, because you can't submit a grant app unless you've submitted the plan that outlines how the money is going to be spent down the road. So this is a requirement, but like I said, there's no bonus points for
does it make it any easier for you?
It makes it easier on NDOT, who has to process it all. For me, it's the same either way. Yeah, so NDOT's been a good partner to the airport. They put in quite a bit of state apportionment money funding the original airport purchase. So yeah, it'd be a nice thing to help them on their workload.
So what do we need, a motion to approve this?
How do you guys feel about it? Just expediting?
Do it.
Yeah.
I think the quicker.
Okay.
I realize it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but on the other hand, it's a matter of goodwill. We certainly want to maintain goodwill within NDOT.
I don't anticipate we'd make any changes next month.
Like I
Like I
said,
said,
if
this
they are,
is an existing plan that's been moved forward a year.
it sounds to me like if we would make any changes, it would just be in a matter of maybe adjusting some figures or something, if there's something that would change with that.
Yeah, I think that really the only change in this program from what you've seen previously is the addition of this terminal apron and taxiway strengthening at the end of the program. And the only reason I put that in there is because it's a 5-year plan, and we're hoping to have the runway built within 4 years of beginning its construction. So we needed something in that 5th year. And again, I want to stress that 2019, just because we show construction starting then, doesn't tie us to 19. It's just, once we start it, we're planning that it'll take 4 years to complete the construction.
I would go ahead, I I would go ahead and move to approve this is a CIP, right?
Yep, the CIP.
So let's go ahead and, I'm gonna move to approve the CIP and authorize the president to execute any documents necessary to do.
Second? Second. Any further discussion needed? Anybody? If not, roll call vote. Judy, please.
John Dooley.
Yes, approved.
Jim Pruitt.
Yes.
Don Whipple.
Yes.
Bill Ursus.
Yes. Paul,
Thank you. I will get the final documents together and to you, Bill, for signature.
what needs to be done? Does this have to be voted on, or?
That's what you voted on first.
Oh, that's what I did, okay, yeah, I'll sign it then, all right. All right, thank you. Mr. Scheidler?
I don't think I got anything new to report. We're still got Hangar D2 is still unoccupied, and nothing else new going on for my end of things. So, if anybody's got any questions about anything, I think that's it for me.
Are you keeping the snow off the runway?
We had that there light snow that one day, and I did take the broom out there and
Okay.
well, it's kind of a thing, Don, you know, the runway, if that little bit of snow goes out there and melts and it don't get dried up, it'll become ice.
Right.
And it freezes at night, so
Right.
I go out and sweep it off so that runway can dry off on some, you know. And that's kind of the thought there, so,
That's how's the equipment work?
very good. Good shape, so,
Okay.
all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Tribbett? Sure. For those who don't know, this is Don Tribbett, our attorney.
Evening, everyone.
Mr. Cribbett.
As Paul indicated, the survey work, the field work on the surveys have been completed. The next step is, of course, the legal descriptions for the properties, and Paul has indicated earlier that he plans to get those to me by the first part of the year. At that point, just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what happens from there, we need to have the property appraised. The Federal Land Acquisitions Act is fairly specific on what needs to be done. We have to have an appraisal and a review appraisal. And at that point, then we can make an offer to the landowners. Appraisals, of course, will be based upon the legal descriptions. We can't reverse the order because we have to have the legal descriptions before we can do the surveys. I'm sorry, before we do the appraisals. So you'll have an appraiser and a review appraisal. That gets us to more than an educated guess as to actual values. Will help as far as looking at the actual dollar figures that are going to be needed to complete the acquisitions. Of course, that doesn't mean the landowners have to accept the appraised value. They can contest that and present whatever other evidence they want to present regarding the values. But it at least gets us to a point that is more precise than where we stand right now, which are really basically nothing more than educated guesses or estimates. And so we, like I say, we'll have a better idea as to the better handle on the money that's going to be needed. I anticipate that by your next board meeting, I will be in a position to recommend an appraiser and a review appraiser. I've done some checking. Not all appraisers are qualified to do appraisals under the federal act. In fact, they're fairly few and far between. So I've been asked to make some recommendations. You're probably not going to have somebody from the immediate Greensburg area to do that. So I will make a recommendation. The federal requirements are that we enter into a contract with the appraisers, and they'll ask you for that at some point in time. So they put their file together and they have a checklist, and one of the items on the checklist is the appraisal agreement. So I anticipate at the same time I make the recommendation to this board at your next meeting, I anticipate having agreements, contracts prepared, ready to go. Not trying to be presumptuous. If for some reason the board doesn't like what they see, you don't have to approve it. But at the same time, I think if it's to expedite matters, it'd be nice to have the actual documentation here and ready to be approved by the board if you're so inclined to do that. The process then, and I don't go into a lot of detail, but I think I've maybe described this before, but the process at that point is to make an offer to the landowners in the amount of the appraisal/review appraisal, and give them 30 days, that's by statute, to accept the offer. If the offer is not accepted within the 30-day time frame, then you're at liberty to proceed with eminent domain proceeding to acquire the land in that process. That process really has two points to it, two focal points to it. Number one is the right to take, statutory, whether you have the statutory right to take. That is generally an abbreviated process, although I've been through a couple of situations where that took several months to tie down. It depends upon the response that you get. But that's the first phase, and then the second phase, once the right to take is determined, then the court appoints 3 court-appointed appraisers who will come in with a value, and the value they come in with, it will be filed with the court, and you can then tender into the court the funds that meet that value and take possession of the property and proceed with the project. That doesn't mean that that's a final determination, because the landowners or this board can actually take issue with the amount of the court-appointed appraisal, and can then ask for basically a trial on the issue of damages. So it is not unusual for that second aspect to drag out a little bit, but as I said earlier, once you tender in court the amount of the appraisal determined by the court-appointed appraisers, you're in a position to take ownership and proceed with your project. I can't really give you an estimate as to the time frame on that, because it depends on the other side, how they react. But the first phase of that is generally a fairly expedited phase. So you may already know this, the landowners, a couple of landowners whose property you're seeking have hired an attorney out of Carmel that specializes in eminent domain. I actually welcome that. Well, I welcome it because, so many times, I mean, I've seen some things thrown around in your, local comments and local newspaper that really are not on point, are not really directed to the issue. I mean, I saw one person had indicated that you were trying to steal their land, and there's certainly not an appropriate terminology for the process that we're looking at right now. And a lot of times when you have a lawyer on the other side, it actually helps the process, because you don't have to worry about a bunch of extraneous, irrelevant issues being raised, typically. So I actually welcome that. I've been in contact with that attorney on a couple of occasions. Everything's been cordial, and I don't think there's been any animosity, at least between the attorneys. So I would hope that would be the course that would be followed throughout the entire proceeding. We are continuing to work on the funding source. Your professionals have been working on that since a couple of months ago. It's not as straightforward and as simple as sometimes I think folks might think it would be, but that is still in the works, and with the appraisals we'll be in a much better position, I think, to actually look at more concrete dollar figures, and I hope to have a further report for you on that particular aspect early next year. So with that, I would wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Quick question, John, the appraiser and the review appraiser, are they hired together or separate, or? I know they work together, but are they?
They're not from the same firm. I mean, they have to be two separate, they can't be interrelated
Okay.
organizations. So they'll be two separate appraisers. And the review appraisal is really has more to do with the methodology that's been used than it does the actual appraisal. Review appraiser looks at the methodology used by by the appraiser, and
They aren't done simultaneously then?
no,
Okay.
no. Now, they may both come down here or come here at the same time and look at the land, but they're not going to be done simultaneously. The review appraiser can't do his work until he sees
Right.
the appraisal. So yes, that's. But in my experience, there's not a tremendous amount of lag from one to the other. And I've had had some pretty good luck in dealing with folks who are extremely qualified and very experienced and have been very timely. So I think you can pretty much look to that as where my recommendation will come from. So, but like I say, I hope to be in a position. I'm going to talk to. I was going to talk to the appraiser before I came to this board and made a recommendation. We don't want to go through the process and they find out they don't have the time or don't want to do it. Don't want to come to Greensburg.
Don, if there are two separate amounts on the appraisal, I presume the highest.
It won't happen here, Jim. It's a little different than the normal land acquisition because of the federal act coming into play, really planning the state statute a bit. If the review appraiser comes in and says, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with this, then what happens is it goes back to the appraiser who then has to reevaluate his position and make a determination whether he can make a change that coordinates with what the review appraiser has said it needs to be.
So it's really the well, I guess for lack of a better word, primary appraiser.
Right.
Primary appraisal, and then that is reviewed, and then that works.
They end up having to agree. Yeah. And that's not totally dissimilar from the court-appointed appraisers, because court-appointed appraisers have to agree. I mean, you don't come in with three different appraisal amounts and averages. They just simply have to hammer things out and end up with an agreement. In my experience, the way it normally works is one takes the lead and the others go along. With regard to the court-appointed appraisers, only two have to be licensed appraisers. Now, I don't totally up to the judge who does, but one of the three can be a freeholder. And so I've seen that happen. Not always. I've seen courts that said, I want all of them to be licensed and require the licensing for all. And they are not. The court probably isn't going to look to the degree that we will to federal experience. I mean, we're going to look to federal experience because we're the ones that have to satisfy that and have to answer to the FAA that we've done it right. And they will look over that paperwork. I mean, I've been asked for that paperwork several times. It's funny because sometimes you'll get a request for the contract with the appraiser early on. Sometimes you don't get it until you're really almost done with the project. You're ready to go to construction. I said, oh, well, by the way, where are your contracts with the appraiser? But they do have a checklist, and they will sooner or later ask for that. So my feeling is get it done up front rather than worry about that meeting later. I try to do things by the book because I think in the long run it saves you time.
Do you need anything from us as a board at this point?
Not tonight, no. And I'm told you to act upon recommended contracts, and like I said, hopefully have those to you next month. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.